You're watching a special edition of CNN News Center live from Hong Kong. Hello, everyone. I'm Monita Rajpal. Our top story today, Crimean authorities have formally applied to become part of Russia. This morning, they declared independence following a referendum to secede from Ukraine. The region's election commission says 97% of votes were in favor of joining the Russian Federation. Like many of us around the world are frustrated by the mystery of Flight 370. It is safe to say that what we're feeling is nothing compared to what the families and friends of those on board are going through. CNN's Pauline Chu is following developments now from Beijing. She joins us now live. Pauline?
Monita, yeah, that frustration is magnified 10 times for these families here. 154 of those people on board are Chinese citizens. Many of their families have been in Beijing for 10 days. We're going into...
All right, Pauline, thank you very much for that. Pauline Chu live for us from Beijing. Well, away from the heartache of families is the simple underlying question of where is Malaysian Airlines Flight 370? To help us shed some light on how investigators are seeking out that answer, we're joined by Graham Braithwaite. He joins us now from London. He's a professor of safety and accident investigation at Cranfield University. Sir, thank you very much for being with us. I think what we seem to be getting is just little bits of information that authorities are revealing right now. It's very difficult then to piece it all together to give some sort of a picture of what may happen. Is that as a result of the fact that maybe authorities themselves don't have a picture of what may have happened?
I think you're partly right. There's lots of information coming from all sorts of sources which needs to be corroborated, whether it ends up being a technical event.
Graham Braithwaite there in London, thank you so much for your time. You're watching CNN News Center live from Hong Kong. Welcome back. More than half a century after the Soviet Union handed Crimea to Ukraine, Crimea is formally asking Moscow to allow it to join the Russian Federation. A short time ago, the Crimean parliament approved a resolution declaring Crimea an independent sovereign state. This follows Sunday's referendum. Crimea's election commission says 96.7% of voters chose annexation. Russia's lower house of parliament is expected to take up the issue of annexing Crimea as soon as Friday. But before Friday, Moscow could face sanctions by the U.S. and the European Union. EU foreign ministers have been meeting in Brussels, and CNN's Aaron McLaughlin joins us now from London with more on the international reaction and the talks that are taking place to have some sort of unified answer. I think that's been the major issue, and that there hasn't been a unified response from the EU there. Aaron?
Hi, Moni. Well, I think sanctions are a very likely outcome of that meeting going on now in Brussels of all 20.
All right, Aaron, thank you very much for that. Aaron McLaughlin there live for us from London. Well, Peter Truscott is a member of the British House of Lords and a Russian analyst. He's also the author of the books Putin's Progress and Kursk, Russia's Lost Pride. He joins us now from London. Lord Truscott, thank you very much for being with us. The Archbishop of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Crimea has been quoted as saying, and I've raised this because it's quite an interesting quote. He says, it's like we've been caught up in a net that is dragging us down back into the past. What will Crimea be like now?
Well, I think you've got to bear in mind that they've just had this referendum, and the people of Crimea.
It is interesting because Russia has obviously a lot of importance has been placed on Russia's influence in certain critical affairs that are taking place around the world. As you mentioned, Syria being one of them. That said, what do you believe is Putin's end game here then?
Well, I think when this crisis developed, Russia was left with a situation where they had.
Thank you so much for your time. Let's bring you up to date on some of the other stories that we're following for you today. The mother of Reva Steenkamp has attended the Oscar Pistorius murder trial for the second time. June Steenkamp was in the gallery for what is the 11th day of the trial. The prosecution so far today has called a firearms service provider and one of Pistorius's neighbors who heard gunshots on the night of the incident. A crime scene photographer is the latest witness to take the stand. 2 people have been killed and 14 wounded in a suicide bombing in Lebanon. The bomber also died in the blast targeting a Hezbollah stronghold in the Bekaa Valley. 2 rebel groups fighting against Syria's government have claimed responsibility for the explosion. Hezbollah fighters have been helping President Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria's civil war. French government says it will restrict driving in Paris starting today in hopes of cutting the heavy smog. Drivers will be able to use their vehicles only on alternate days for the first time since 1997. Warm nights and cold days have kept the pollution from blowing away. The beer maker Guinness has dropped its sponsorship of the Big Apple's St. Patrick's Day parade later today. The Irish company withdrew because gay and lesbian groups will not be able to march openly. It is the latest beer giant to pull out of a St. Patrick's Day festival after Heineken and Sam Adams stopped their support for the same reason. Now to Geneva, where a representative from North Korea will face questions about human rights abuses in that country. Among the people scheduled to testify before the UN Human Rights Council is a former North Korean prison guard. CNN's Paula Hancock spoke with him.
An Myung-chol's experiences would horrify you.
You are watching CNN News Center live from Hong Kong. Despite an overwhelming turnout and a landslide vote, not everyone in Crimea is celebrating the outcome of the referendum. Welcome back. While ethnic Russians overwhelmingly approved joining Russia in the Crimean referendum, members of another much smaller ethnic group refused to vote almost completely. Tatars in Crimea have faced persecution under Russian rule in the past, and as Nick Payton-Walsh reports, they now dread what could happen next.
In any normal election, rain can dampen turnout, but not in Crimea.
And I'm Monita Rajpal at CNN Hong Kong. Thank you for joining us. CNN Newsroom is next with Max Foster.